Dude, let's go.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Untamed Outdoorsmen. And today we are back with a very special video. And today the time has finally come to do our 1-year buyer's review on my personal kayak, the Native Watercraft Titan X 12.5. You guys already saw a look on it, and we have done a full complete build series on this kayak all throughout 2024. I believe we're on part 17 right now, and we're not even done with that build series, but we have used this kayak for one complete season pretty extensively. We've been using it anywhere from 1 day a week all the way to 4 days a week. We fished over 50 times on this kayak throughout 2024. You guys didn't see every one of those videos, but because some of them we didn't catch fish, but we have fished on this thing over 50 times throughout 2024. So we have some pretty extensive experience with this thing now. So yeah, this is now time to do our buyer's review for it. Those of you who have been subscribed to us for a while will know we've done videos like this in the past. We've done ones on Pete's Native Watercraft Titan 12. We've done 2 of them on my Ascend 133X, the old kayak. And our 1-year buyer's review on that is one of our best videos ever, view-wise. A lot of you really enjoyed that video, so we're going to be following a similar structure to that. This video is going to be very similar to that, so if you enjoyed that video, you're probably going to enjoy this one too. I think this one's going to be a little bit longer than the Ascend 133X one, just because, you know, we have more YouTube experience under our belt, more of what we want to talk about, a lot more things you want to dive into on this guy. So yeah, if you enjoy, definitely be sure to show your support, like, comment, subscribe. A lot of effort goes into these videos. This video is kind of like our Super Bowl for us. So thank you so much for watching. To any of my new subscribers or new viewers, I hope you stick around. But yeah, so a few disclaimers I want to get out of the way before we get into it here. I am not sponsored by any of the products or brands in this video. I am not sponsored by Big Adventure, which is the company that makes Native Watercraft and Bonafide. I'm not sponsored by any of the products on here. You know, I paid my own money for all of this stuff. So just to get that out of the way, eliminate some of that confusion. Also, all of these opinions we're going to talk about are completely subject to change. When we did our Ascend 133X buyer's review, we were very positive on it. But with that being a cheaper kayak and our 2-year buyer's review, we were a little hard on it. And just keep that in mind. You know, all these opinions are subject to change as they get older, as things age. You know, we'll take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's aging. But all of these opinions are subject to change. Over the last 2 years, we've had some comments that have been swiftly deleted that were upset with us that we changed opinions from 1 year to 2 years. So just keep that in mind. Number 3, you don't have to do any of this if you don't want to. I'm actually quoting aggressively average anglers with this. They've shouted me out in the past. I'm going to shout them out now because I liked what they said. You don't need all this stuff to enjoy bass fishing. If you want to go completely minimalist and have none of this stuff, that's totally fine. If you want to go even crazier than what I'm doing here, that's also totally fine. The glory of kayak fishing is you can do whatever you want and whatever you feel is fun. So just keep that in mind. You know, that's kind of the glory of this sport. You know, there's options for everybody. I know the internet likes to paint the impression that these type of kayaks are the only thing that you can possibly buy. There are so many options out there for every type of angler and every budget of angler out there. So this is totally up to you on how you want to rig things in the kayak that you want to buy. I'm just here to give my thoughts on this guy. So keep that in mind. And lastly, I'm also quoting aggressively average anglers here. If you're just going to come on here and tell me to buy a bass boat, unless you're going to buy it for me, I say buy a life. Yeah. Okay. So how the structure of the video is going to go. And I'll leave timestamps to every part of this video. So you're not just, if you don't want to hear me talk for 40 minutes, you can go to any part you want and get the information that you need. I won't be offended by that. But how this is going to go, we are going to go through all of the mods that I have done. I'm going to try to go through them relatively quickly. If I miss something or if you have a question on something, feel free to leave a comment. I'll happily answer it. But yeah, we're going to go through all of the products that we've added to this thing, kind of give my feedback on them, if I like them, if I don't like them, just kind of my thoughts on them relatively quickly. And then we're going to go into some pros and cons, some things that I like about this kayak, some things that I maybe don't like about this kayak, and some things that I maybe think could be improved. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to go through some topics surrounding this kayak in particular and what I feel kind of needs to be addressed. Just some topics that have come up over the last year or so. And then we're going to go into kind of my final overall thoughts on this thing. Do I enjoy it? Do I like it? Do I recommend it? And then kind of the plans for the upcoming year, 2025. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. Like I said, I'll leave timestamps to everything. If you just want to get a certain part out of this, I won't be offended. But yeah, let's get into this here. Okay, so right here, we're in the bow section of the kayak here. We got quite a few things to talk about here. I have my Motor Guide XI3 right here. I have had two Motor Guide XI3s. This is my second one. I have had no problems with either one. They are really great models. I really enjoy them. I know that they actually combined with Lowrance now. So who knows, maybe we'll get a Lowrance XI3 at some point. But I hope they keep the XI3 around, still making it, and you don't have to go into a used market because these things kind of have a corner in the kayak industry, these XI3s for the kayak model. Because they're great. They're excellent motors. I have not had a single problem with either one. So I know there's a lot of people that do have problems with them. I haven't had any problems. So I really enjoy it. It does have the pinpoint GPS in there, and I also added the Katana prop. The Katana prop is fantastic for mild to moderate vegetation. If you're planning on going through like a jungle in this thing, it probably won't help out all that much. At that point, you probably need to get a higher pound thrust motor like, I've seen people in my tournaments that we do, I've seen people run like Garmin Krakens. Those things just chew right through the weeds. But these are great for mild to moderate vegetation. No issue there. So I do recommend them. You don't need the saltwater one if you don't want it, but they are great units and I do recommend them while you can still get them, I guess. I don't know what's going on there. Okay, a few other things here. So we have a couple of other goodies. I'll actually bang this out quick. This is my Tasking Brutus net right here. I do like this quite a bit, especially as a budget net. I really do think it's pretty good. I think I paid like 30 bucks, and honestly, it does the job really great. So yeah, we've already made a video on this, so I'm not gonna go crazy on it, but I do actually like this quite a bit. Okay, so right here I have a couple of goodies. So I have my current plug here. This is the battery tender plug. This thing is actually fantastic. You pay a good amount for this, but the quality you get on it is just, it can't be beaten in my opinion. It's right up there with that high-end Minn Kota plug that everybody loves. This is a secured mechanical connection here. There's no wiggling this out. This is a really nice connection here, and it's all ring terminal based. So if you get a good quality crimp on it, you have a good quality crimper, this thing will last you a very, very long time. I haven't had any issues with water getting in here either. We've been in rainstorms with this thing, and not even a drop has gotten in through there. So no worries about that. This is a fantastic unit. I highly recommend that because one thing I've learned is not to cheap out on plugs. So this is the old plug that I had. Those of you who watch our build series know the story behind this, but basically these wires back here, we actually installed this in our build series, but these connections are only secured with Phillips screws. So these are just primed to work themselves out. So I do not recommend this plug. It was a no-name Amazon brand. It had good reviews, but unfortunately it just didn't really work out for me, and it almost resulted in a fire. So don't recommend that. And this was the original Motor Guide XI3 plate that I had for the Titan X specifically. So the main purpose of this was to provide rigidity to the bow of the hull for an XI3 motor. And we've actually replaced that with something better. But this was the first iteration one, came out with the first couple of Titan X's, first batches were the Titan X's. It did its job. However, you lose so much handle. You can't actually get your hand on the handle like that. You have to actually like reach from behind and get your pinky fingers and stuff caught on this. It was fine for the time being, but it wasn't going to be a long-term solution. So that's where this guy comes in. I got to take the XI3 out to talk about it. So one second. So this is Native's current XI3 bow plate. This is the one that comes with the XI3. This is the quick release puck for the XI3 specifically. And this is Native's plate to add the rigidity to the hull right here. This thing, in my opinion, if you have an older Titan X, as in the first couple of batches being released, I highly recommend getting this plate. This thing is awesome because keep in mind, the main purpose of this plate is not the handle. The main purpose of this plate is for the XI3's rigidity, making sure the plastic doesn't bend or anything too much. But, however, the nice added bonus is this handle security here. So we'll talk more about this later in the video. But this handle kind of had some issues in the beginning of the Titan X's lifespan, and this helps prevent that. Also, this is not a winching handle. Keep that in mind. This is not a handle specifically for winching. It's not advertised as a winching handle. So do that at your own risk. If you're going to winch, that's on you. I don't typically recommend winching kayaks. It's just the nature of what you're doing. Plastic being winched, generally not a good combination, but this does give you a lot more rigidity. Okay, so we're on to the bow hatch area now. So I have the Yak Power LED strips here, the red and the greens. These things in terms of quality are great. I know I've been somewhat critical on Yak Power in the past because of some of their products, not all, but some. I did feel they had a lot of room for improvement on a few things, but these are really good. I really recommend these because they're waterproof and in my opinion, they're just great. I've had them on multiple kayaks now and I haven't had a problem with them. Just to show you that they do work, I'll go on here real quick. They do work. So that's great. Keep in mind, if you're going to mount them on the hatch here, it does make the hole drill free. However, just keep in mind the adhesive on this is probably going to fail because this is a texturized surface here. It makes it a lot harder to get a good adhesion, which is fine. You have the back screw over here, so it's not a big deal in my opinion, but just keep that in mind that it will happen. And in terms of like getting blinded by this, I know some people have commented or said that in, whatever groups or whatever. I don't get blinded by these lights. I know some people say that they do. I don't. I guess it's all going to depend on your height and how you are sitting in the kayak. But yeah, let's open this up. We got a few other things to talk about here. So this is my 50 amp hour Power Queen battery. This thing is awesome. It fits pretty perfectly in this bow section here. I wouldn't go any bigger than 50 amp in here because if you go any larger, you're probably not going to fit it. But this 50 amp is fantastic. I have not killed this thing running a GoPro all day for 8 to 10 hours, running fish finders, running the lights for 8 to 10 hours, all three combined, haven't had a problem with them. I did add some weather stripping over here. I do recommend this because the weather stripping on the bow does tend to come out a little bit, but this is a better quality weather stripping right here. So this is pretty good. I believe we've left links to this in the description before, but I'll do it again. Got our little bow hatch here. Don't mind that circuit breaker. We'll talk about that. In here, not a whole lot going on. I do have the 8-button panel. The main computer of the Yak Power system is in here. It fits perfectly flushed up against this wall here. I know I said we don't drill it in this kayak, but I lied. I did drill a little bit in here just to get it to secure because the Velcro was so bad. But this doesn't move now, so it's fine. I also have the Noco Genius back there as well, a dual lithium charger, in-hole charger, so I don't even have to take these batteries out. I've had no issues with it. I'll talk about it later on in the walkthrough here, but yeah, nothing else going on. I do have some of our duplex wires showing here for the trolling motor. That's 8 gauge. Again, we'll talk about that later. All right, so that's it for the bow section. Now we're going to go to the middle section of the kayak here. Okay, so we got a little bit of stuff to talk about here as well, and these native Propel drives are just so solid. All steel construction, all metal construction. There's no plastic aside from these guys right here, which is fine. This is not a cheap plastic. These things are awesome. 5-year warranty with these two, covers any issues. Keep in mind, you got to maintenance these things. We're probably going to do a video on that this winter on maintaining this guy just to keep our warranty from being voided because they will void your warranty if they find out it hasn't been serviced. But yeah, these things are awesome. Can't speak highly enough of these things. I have had no issues. Over here, I got the couple things. I got the Garmin EchoMap 93 SV. We've talked about this in numerous videos. This thing is amazing. Like I said, I do eventually plan to add live scope to this thing. 50-50 and that's going to be done this year or not, maybe next season. Maybe going into the 2026 season, maybe we'll add live scope to this. But this thing is awesome. Perfect size screen, in my opinion, the 9-inch. I got the Yak Attack fish finder arm here. No issues with that whatsoever. And I also have the heavy duty base here, which I highly recommend because this thing doesn't really move. Obviously, it's going to have a little bit of movement, but this thing doesn't move any significant amount with this HD base in here because it's supported by 2 parts. Right here, I have the Yak Attack Track Pack Evergreen. This was a special edition color that I got about a year ago, a little under a year ago. And this thing is awesome. I did not envision myself having the Yak Attack Track Pack because I just didn't really see the use for it. But this special edition color came out. I thought we had to have it, especially for the channel. This is one of 50 right here. And this thing is actually pretty useful. I keep all my terminal tackle in here and then all my soft plastics and stuff, all my quick grab soft plastics that I use a lot, they're in here. So pretty cool. All right, so now we're into like the seat area here. We got a few different things to talk about. Right here, we have native seat. So this is the original seat on the kayak. This is the Millennium Marine seat. I believe they're all still made by Millennium Marine, but the newer Titan X's have an all black seat with the native Watercraft logo right here. I don't really care. I don't really care about the seat color or the logo. Doesn't matter too much to me. But this seat in terms of quality is great. This is a great quality seat. You can tell when you sit in it, it's good quality. I will say, and this is a personal thing, I find this seat slightly uncomfortable because if you take this kayak cushion out of there, there's really no support. There's no lumbar support or really anything on it. Not that I'm asking for there to be lumbar support on a kayak seat, but it is definitely a slightly uncomfortable seat. But yeah, it's a great quality seat, but personally I find it a little uncomfortable. That's why I got this. So this is the Kayak cushion. It's the brand Kayak cushion with the native Watercraft logo on it. This thing made me love this seat again. This is a great, great quality piece here. I never take this thing out. It's with me every trip. I always have it. And if you don't find this seat overly comfortable, I highly recommend getting this. So yeah, another thing I want to talk about, the base and everything is very high quality. It's all steel aside from this plastic sliding tray here, which I do use quite a bit. I will say, if you notice, there's a little bit of bobbing left and right with this. And a lot of people are having an issue where the bearing for the 360 swivel seat will actually pop out of the seat. If it does happen to you, it's under your warranty, so it'll just get fixed, assuming you're the original owner. But yeah, that is something that does happen. And I'm guessing that the movement here, and this is from that 360 bearing, that's probably a sign of it starting to go out. So who knows? I don't know what's going to happen there, but you can remove the 360 swivel part of the seat if you just want to have the seat. So you have options. I like the 360 swivel, but not everybody does. So it's up to you whether or not you like it. A few other things. So guys, I apologize for the weird angle, but here we got the Yak Power 8-button system. This thing is, in my opinion, the best way to go for the Titan X, especially with that PowerLink plate there. The 5-button system doesn't fit amazing. You're going to have to make some modifications to the PowerLink plate to get the 5-button system to work. However, this Yak Power 8-button system is a better choice. It's just a better, it's a better drill hole to make. You only got to make a 1/2-inch hole, I believe, and then the 2 screw holes on both sides. But this thing is great. It's only a few dollars more than the 5-button. And for the Titan X specifically, I really do recommend it. And then on this side, we have a few different things. So right here, we have the 2 Yak Power ports here. Nothing really to write home about with these guys. They're perfectly fine. I may end up removing these for next season just because I don't really use them too much. I'll just get a whole new power plate and just only drill this hole. But I also have this USB here. This is by the company Quito. It's got 2 USB ports. I know you can't see that too clearly. It's got a USB-C port over here, and then it's got a power on and off button, but it's controlled by the Yak Power anyway. It's got a voltmeter here. Keep in mind, with lithium, voltmeters are not that useful. You really need a shunt for lithium, which is that amped outdoors monitor that we installed. You need a shunt for lithium. Voltmeters are not a great way to tell the battery life, but yeah, no problems there either. So yeah, let's get to the stern section. Okay, so we got a few things to talk about in the battery section here. So let's talk about them. So you can remove this with the seat still in. You just got to move the seat a little forward and then go like that. So a few different things. So I have the Noco AC port plug here. This is a 12-foot one. It actually keeps it drill free. There's no holes drilled into this hull aside from those tiny little Yak Power ones inside the hull itself. But I do have this Noco Genius AC port plug. This allows me to just plug in an extension cord right into the Kayak, and it charges both batteries safely and effectively. It's got a ton of different sensors in that Noco Genius to prevent any issues with these batteries from happening. With lithium, I highly recommend getting a lithium charger. It's almost a non-negotiable because you run the risk of so many issues with lithium if you do it improperly. There's things like thermal runaway you got to worry about, like BMS systems you got to worry about. So having a lithium charger helps you out in that scenario quite a bit. But yeah, so going on to the lithium battery itself, this is a 100 amp hour lithium ion. This is by the company Redodo. I think it formerly was called Zooms, but they changed the name. This thing is a budget lithium. If you're looking for higher quality lithiums, I know Amped Outdoors makes a good one, Dakota makes a good one, and also the company Victron makes a really good one. So if you're going for higher end ones, definitely get those. But in my opinion, you don't really have to. If you treat these properly and get proper chargers and stay within, their specs, these will do great for you. So this is my 3rd season with it. I've had no issues whatsoever with any of the 3 seasons. Right here is our Amped Outdoors battery shunt. This is the best way to tell battery percentage with lithium because, like I said, voltmeters just don't do a good job. But yeah, these shunts this is actually one of the more budget-friendly ones, is these Amped Outdoors ones. Victron makes some, which I think are better quality, but this was one of the more budget ones that I saw. Generally, I think they're, at minimum, I think they're $50. So keep that in mind with these. Some of them have internal shunts, but those are going to run you like $600-700 for the battery. has an internal BMS system in this battery. Keep in mind, BMS is not a circuit breaker. It's not how that works. The main purpose of BMS is to make sure the battery stays within its own specs. So making sure the battery is not getting overheated. It has internal sensors. That's what the BMS is. If it notices that any of those numbers start to fall out of its range of acceptance, it will actually trip the BMS, but it's not a circuit breaker. It doesn't know what you're hooking up to. So it only controls its own battery health, if that makes sense. I apologize if I'm not explaining that right. But right here, we got our little trolling motor set up here. So right here, what I did is this is a 9-inch battery cable. It's a positive and negative on both sides here. And instead of having to cut, splice, and butt connect a ton of different wires, I just took this because this had ring terminals already on it. Ring terminals and heat shrink with a 60 amp circuit breaker. This is 8-gauge wire here too. On the other side here, I actually used the negative side of the battery terminal kit, and I just butt spliced it to the battery tender because the negative terminal on the battery tender actually had some resistance on it. So I just figured it was better off creating a new butt splice. But yeah, I've had no issues with the setup, no overheating or anything like that, no real heavy resistance. So yeah, this is a great setup here. In terms of wire gauge, in my opinion, 8 gauge is the smallest I would go. Do not put 10 gauge on this. You will have a lot of voltage drop, a lot of resistance. So I do not recommend running 10 gauge. 8 gauge is the minimum. If you want to go the extra mile, 6 gauge is totally acceptable too. You could run 4 gauge, but at that point, if you go 4 gauge or larger, there's no benefit. You're just wasting money at that point. There's no real benefit to running overly large wire. That's not really how that works. 8 gauge minimum. 6 gauge is probably the best choice. That's probably what I'll end up swapping to is 6 gauge, maybe next year. But again, 8 gauge is fine. I've had no issues with it. If you want to go the extra mile, 4 gauge, but don't go any larger than 4 gauge. You're just wasting money at that point. But yeah, so this is a great setup here. So real quick, in terms of circuit breaker placement on that Kayak, I know Native has their install video, and we've actually done it too, and we're guilty of it. Native actually put their circuit breaker all the way up to the bow hatch of the Kayak. And we did that in our original XI3 install video, and we've since changed it. To give you a reason, and I think this is Native's reason, I don't know for sure or not, but to give you a reason why Native might have done that is these guys right here. So this is ABYC. That's kind of the official rule book, I guess, for marine electronics, marine equipment, marine engines in the United States. That's sort of the guideline for a lot of people trying to get jobs. That's sort of the guideline that people have followed and are trained on. Their rule when it comes to circuit breakers is a little weird. So generally, if you can, you want to have it at around 7 inches, according to ABYC. Around 7 inches. I have it at 9, which I could be a little bit closer, but it's okay. In my opinion, I think it'll be all right, as long as it's close to the battery. But they have some weird rules. So if your wire run, as in your positive and negative, if your wire run to your device is sheathed, and sheathed meaning like it has some covering on it, and duplex does count as sheathed. If it's sheathed and connected to the battery directly, technically, according to ABYC, you can go up to 70 inches, 70 inches, before you need a circuit breaker. Do I agree with that? I don't really agree with that. However, if you want to do that, according to ABYC, you can. I don't, do that at your own risk. I don't condone, running a circuit breaker that far away. But to give you a reason why Native may have done that, again, I'm not Native Watercraft. I don't know for sure. But to give you a potential reason why they may do it, according to ABYC, that's the rule. So yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that because that was something that I learned recently and I just wanted to make you guys aware of it. Okay, so a couple final things here. Now we're in the stern section and we're going to talk about the landing gear here, the sidekick. I like the sidekick. I've had no real issues with it. I really can't complain about it. It's a good unit. I will say I have both tires here. So I have the regular pneumatic tires on that side and I have the sand tires on this side. So the sand tires, in my opinion, versus the pneumatics, if you're going to go for one, probably the standard pneumatics are the way to go. Obviously, that depends on how you're fishing. If you're fishing on the beach a lot, if you're having to bring your kayak down, if you inshore stuff, maybe. But, in my opinion, I think the best way is to get both. If you can get both, I recommend getting both. Mainly because both of these have their pros, but they also have their severe drawbacks. The pneumatic tires are great on pavement. They're great on, boat ramps, like real boat ramps. They're fantastic on that. These beach tires excel, obviously, in sand. They do great, but both are terrible at the opposite. These are really bad on pavement. They feel really heavy, like you're carrying around a lot of extra weight because you keep them at a pretty low PSI on purpose. So it makes it more of a struggle. Those guys dig themselves into the sand almost immediately. So in my opinion, if you're fishing a lot of different style ramps, it's best to get both. But again, that's just my opinion. You don't have to do that. You could very well get a cart for this too. A cart is definitely a great option. It would be kind of a pain with the rudder, but I know people have figured out a way to do it pretty efficiently. So if you want to get a cart, that's more than fine too. In terms of, I know these sidekicks kind of get a bad rap for them actually, like horror stories of people actually having the sidekick yank out of the kayak. The only way that will happen is if you're overloading the rated capacity of this landing gear, or you're driving on very difficult terrain, as in like potholes or really rough sand, gravel, hills. Like if you're putting the sidekick in very difficult and somewhat dangerous situations, that very well could happen. So if you're going to do that, I recommend getting a real cart, like a Yak Attack Tow and Sew bar cart or the Wilderness Systems cart. I recommend that. Or if you have a trailer, obviously I think a trailer would be the best option of the three. If you're okay with using a trailer, I'll probably end up getting a trailer for this at some point, and maybe we'll do a whole build series on a trailer. But yeah, the sidekick is great if you stay within the specifications of the sidekick. And lastly, right here, I have the Yak Attack Black Pack. I've had this thing for 3 years. It's going to be my 4th season with it now. Probably the best fishing investment I've made for kayaks is this Black Pack. I also got the Track Pack, the short stack on it now. The short stack, in my opinion, is a great upgrade if you want to do it because you get more room to store stuff without taking up more space. So it's the best of both worlds. You get more space without taking up space, which is awesome. And then just like small things, I haven't had any issues with the rudder. The spring blade rudder has been great for me. No real issues there. Any of the control stuff has been great. No issues there either. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for the modification overview. Let's get into the pros and cons now. Okay, so now that we've gone through all the modifications, again, if I missed something, I'll leave a comment and I'll definitely give you my feedback on a product that I may have missed. Now we're going to go through the pros and the cons. So I do have a notebook here with some of the pros and cons, so I didn't want to forget any. But I try my best to stay constructive with all of them. I'm not going to get too high on the pros or too low on the cons. I want to just keep things very constructive because we don't believe in just aimlessly bashing products or being aimlessly positive on products without a reason behind it. So yeah, some of these I feel are good points. So we're going to get into the pros first. So the first pro is going to be stability. The stability on this thing, in my opinion, is top tier. It's probably right up there with the Hobie Pro Anglers, right up there with the Ulton Autopilots. You name it, it's probably right up there. I have never really felt unstable on this boat before. Like, oh my God, I'm going to tip. I've never felt that before. And that's getting through some pretty serious environments like Winnipesaukee. Winnipesaukee was a big one we took this kayak on this year. I never felt unstable, so I'll call that a win. The stability of this thing is great. The next one here is going to be length and width. So that kind of piggybacks on stability. The length here is in total 12.8. I know it says 12.5 on the title here on the kayak, but it's technically 12.8 once you factor in everything. Length, in my opinion, is perfect. It's a little shorter than my Titan X, but it's not too long or not too short. They also make the 10.5 option if you're interested in, a shorter kayak. And the width, in my opinion, is a perfect ratio to the length. It makes for a very stable experience here. So definitely, if you're looking for a stable kayak, this is a great one to think about. The next one I gotta say is hull quality. The hull quality on this thing is leaps and bounds above my old kayak, the Ascend 133X. The Ascend 133X right there. It's leaps and bounds above that, and you can just tell. There's not a lot of area on this kayak that you can flex. It's a very, it's a very rigid hull. We've seen it. We've kind of seen the width of the mold and the thickness of the mold. It's definitely a very thick kayak. It's definitely a high quality hull. So you're paying for that for sure. It's worth it in the price for the hull quality. So yeah, the hull quality, in my opinion, is a great, great quality. In my opinion, no real risk of cracking or sun fading, at least for a very, very long time. Obviously, with it being plastic, it's bound to have some kind of issue at some point in its very distant future with it being plastic. But if you put 303, Protect on it every month or two, you should be fine. So the next one I'm going to talk about here, battery and motor options. In my opinion, you have a ton of different options here. You can get up to a 50 amp hour in the front. You can get up to a 100 amp hour in the back, 12 volt. You can put 24 volt back there, 36 volt back there. It doesn't matter. You can really add any type of battery you want on here. I highly recommend, and it's almost a mandatory thing, getting a lithium battery. Lithium batteries are almost a non-negotiable with this kayak because solely the weight. You can live with the lead acid on pretty much everything else, but for this kayak, the weight of a lead acid is a deal breaker. You almost need a lithium solely for the weight. Highly, highly recommend that. But yeah, you can add the XI3 up there if you want. You can add the Newport NK300 or NK180 or NK180 Pro. You can add those in the rear. You can do pretty much anything you want with this kayak in terms of motor. I don't really recommend adding like a cheaper like Minn Kota Endura. Those have kind of some weird issues to them, but it's kind of a pain being able to reach back there the whole time. So, in my opinion, if you can, definitely spring for the higher end XI3 or the Newport, or the Torpedo, whatever you want to do, Bixby, whatever you want. But that's kind of what these are designed for, is those higher end motor options. The next one is not really one that is talked about too much, but I gotta say it's a big deal for me. And that's gotta be the use of space on this kayak, how it maximizes its space. On my old kayak, the Ascend 133X, it was a very different style hull. It was a very open cockpit style hull, meaning it had a lot of open space. You could kick your legs up forward and not have to worry about space. Some people love that. And if you're one of those people that like that, that's more power to you. There's definitely a place for it in the kayak world. But in my opinion, I feel with those style of kayaks, a lot of space just goes to waste. With that open style, all of that area could be better used for other accessories or, different mounts or different accessories, different, style, whatever it may be. I just feel like a lot of that space tends to go to waste on those style kayaks. In my Ascend 133X did it too. I had to put the Yeti Go Box 30 in the bow section over there just to put it used to that front area over there because it was just going to waste. With this kayak, I feel like it maximizes its space extremely well. Even just prime example, pretty much everything on the kayak is covered by track. You got mounts pretty much everywhere. You got in-hole rod holders here. You got more tracks, bow section here. You got the pedal drive. You got the section of the compartment in the seat here. This section right here can hold a 3600 Plano box. You got more PowerLink plates, more track. I just feel like this kayak really does a good job with utilizing its space. And really the only open space here is right here, and that's for foot-controlled steering if you wanted to add it. You can add foot-controlled steering to this guy. Right here is also a catchboard mount or a Yak Attack leaderboard mount. I don't know if it would fit on that, but definitely a catchboard mount right there for sure. But yeah, value for space, it's definitely there. You definitely maximize your space on this guy for sure. The next one, and in my opinion, was a major selling point for me to buy this kayak, and that's got to be the PowerLink plates. The PowerLink plates are right here. These are what allows us to drill into the kayak without actually drilling into the hull. These are a major selling point for me. These were a major reason between this and the in-hull battery storage. Those were the two major selling points for me to get this kayak. They have definitely gotten their money's worth for sure. I've maximized these plates like crazy. But yeah, so, these are a great feature. I can say very confidently that we haven't actually drilled into this hull aside from those couple of tiny little bolts for the Yak Power computer. I have not drilled into this hull. Nothing on the top of the kayak has been drilled into. So it's 100% warranty safe. Not that it would void your warranty if you drilled into the hull, but it's a safe option. Drilling into these PowerLink plates is a safe option. And also, you can drill into this guy too, like I did here. So yeah, this thing is awesome for those PowerLink plates, especially in the bow too. All drill free back there. We drilled into the PowerLink plates for that battery tender mount. The last pro I got to talk about has to be the warranty. The warranty on this thing is really good. It's lifetime on any manufacturing defects. If you're going to do something like for example, winching, if you're going to winch your kayak and the handle breaks, I don't know if they're going to warranty that. Probably not. So just keep that in mind, manufacturing defects. And it's definitely a good warranty. I've had friends of mine who have used it, not just Pete, other native Watercraft owners from my tournaments and things like that, who have had to use the warranty, and it's been very good to them. So generally it's a great warranty. But yeah, lifetime warranty on this guy, so you're covered as long as you're the original owner. If you bought it secondhand, you don't have a warranty. But yeah, so that's going to do it for the pros. I may have missed one or two. If I did, I'll talk about it in the 2-year buyer's review in about a year from now. But the pros, I definitely feel like there are some good ones. But now we're going to get into the cons. Okay, so the first con that I have to talk about, and it couldn't be a cons list without talking about this, has to be the weight. The weight, I mean, granted, it comes with the territory of it being a high-priced, high-quality tournament fishing kayak. It comes with the territory for sure. You have a lot of options to be able to move this boat, but I do not recommend, picking it up. You're not going to be able to pick this thing up. Sorry, it's just not going to be how it works. Car topping is next to impossible. I know some people who have done it, but it's not a long-term solution. It is a very uncomfortable experience. I put this thing in the bed of my truck, and it's fine, but it definitely could be easier. But yeah, the weight is a legitimate concern with this kayak. Even just bringing it into this room, it was a pain. This thing is hilariously heavy, especially once you add, a battery in the front, battery in the rear. That's another 35 pounds total across both batteries. It's a lot of weight. So keep that in mind. It's a heavy boat. We're probably at about 200 pounds total, not even counting this black pack here. We're at about 200 pounds. So keep that in mind. Definitely trailer if you can. Truck bed, it's doable. For me, I've been doing it like that for the whole year. It's doable. But keep that in mind. If you have if you're in a situation where you can't lift heavy things for whatever reason, I would definitely think about that, because this is a legitimate, thing to think about with this boat for sure. The next one is kind of a small one. For me, it's kind of a small con, but it's got to be tie down options. So with this kayak, it's a little weird in how you tie it down. And I'm talking in terms of a truck bed. I've never put it on a trailer before, so it could be different with a trailer. But the best way, and the way that I've found, is 2 separate cam straps right here and right here going to the hooks in the bed. That's the best way, and then one going through the front, obviously. But the issue is if you try to run a ratchet strap, like one ratchet strap going through both, what's going to happen is once you put some tension on it, the strap likes to tuck itself under the track here and lose its tension. So keep that in mind. The reason I run the cam straps and why it works so well is because it's thicker. The cam straps are thicker than ratchet strap straps generally, so they don't get tucked up there as easy, and they tend to fold on themselves, the cam straps, so it makes it even less likely to get tucked under there. But yeah, that's what works for me. But one weird thing is what happens up front in the bow. So what happens up in the bow is, it's weird. So how this is shaped, it's flush, so it's a completely flush unit. When I put it in a truck bed or anything like that, it's going to sit flush up against your bed, meaning you can't get your ratchet strap underneath like that. You have to push your kayak back. You got to put the ratchet strap through and then push it. And the issue with that is it loses its tension as you're driving on the road. So usually when I get back from my fishing trip or I get to the ramp from driving, this front strap here is always loose, but the back two never get loose. This one is always wicked loose. So it's kind of a weird little con that I've noticed, but in my opinion, they got to find a way to allow you to get a strap through it with the kayak sitting flush on a truck bed. It's definitely a little bit of a nitpick con, I will say. It's a little weird one, but it is something that I have noticed. So the next one that I'm going to talk about, and you're not going to be able to see me from the camera, is going to be rear track accessibility. So as you see here, I have the rear track being held in by the two rubber handles here. On Pete's Titan 12, it was a little bit different. He had a cutout right in the middle here to be able to slide accessories on. I don't have that with this kayak. I don't have any sort of way to put tracks or track accessories into this rear track here. So in order for me to fit accessories in here, I have to cut the handle and I have to take this handle out, slide the accessories on, and then retighten the handle to the kayak. So in my opinion, that's just a really weird way to do things. Just take a little, if you want to, you could take like a Dremel and just cut out a little section in the middle, but it should have been there from the factory in my honest opinion. because now, I really can't use this unless I want to take it out every time I want to use it. So a little weird, but it is something that is on these. They may change it in later molds. I guess I have that model. So the next one I want to talk about is a little small one, but like I said before, it's going to be the hatch, the gaskets on the hatch. These hatch gaskets, they love to start to peel back. It actually happened to both of mine, this battery one and that one. The adhesive that they use likes to kind of fall off after a few months or so. It's not a big deal. I paid like 15 bucks to get some proper weather stripping, which solved it completely. But keep that in mind, that weather stripping will probably fail at some point. It is what it is. So one I want to talk about is kind of a doozy. This is one that's kind of been a popular topic. Those of you who are interested in this kayak, I highly recommend going on the Facebook group for Native Watercraft Titan X owners. I'm actually very active on there. I try to give advice where I can to as many people as possible. But I am very active on there. That group is pretty active on specifically the Titan X. But this has been a hot topic for sure. But we'll get to it now. So this is going to have to do with the front handle. Those of you who have had Titan X's and are still watching this video, you probably know that this exists. This issue exists for some. But some people, and not all, but some people who have older Titan X's have had an issue where the front handle will actually rip out of the kayak. That has happened to some, again, not all, but it has happened to some older Titan X owners. It seems to happen in abnormal circumstances, as in if you're yanking the boat, let's say like it's stuck in sand, you have to yank the boat out of sand to get to it. That seems to be where it happens. If the boat is very overloaded and you're pulling laterally, that is how it could happen too. And it also could happen if you're winching the kayak onto the trailer. That's another way that it could happen. Generally, if you're just lifting vertically, it doesn't happen. It doesn't really happen too much. There are some ways that you can actually prevent that. The most obvious one is this plate right here that we talked about earlier. This is Native Watercraft's Titan X bow plate with the added feature of it's got the handle cut out on it. So it adds reinforcement via screws in the back here to where this won't really happen much. Or it severely decreases your chances of letting that issue happen on an older Titan X. This is probably the best way to go. Another way to do it is lifting vertically, making sure you're lifting vertically, not pulling this way, pulling up. You're lifting up. And a third way is probably going to be like this. So you have one hand right here, and then you put one hand on the bow. That's the best way. So this hand holding the bow takes the brunt of the weight, and this hand here is just used for stability. That's probably the best way to do that. This is definitely an issue for some boaters, some kayakers. However, I do think it's being slightly overblown because the internet has a funny way of working to make it seem like it happens to every Titan X owner. And in reality, it doesn't. It never happened to me. But if you want to get that peace of mind, the bow plate's a great way. One thing I will say as a con for this boat, though, is the amount of surface area on the handle. The handle, in my opinion, is the one area where I feel like this Titan X has legitimate room for improvement. In my opinion, for how heavy this boat is and how much weight you could add to this boat, sometimes upwards of 200 plus pounds, you need more handle surface area here. In my opinion, you do. My old kayak, the Ascend 133X, it was a plastic handle, so the quality was not as good. But you had these big, two beefy grab handles on both sides of the bow. This made lifting a heavy kayak a million times easier. There's not a lot of space here to pick up a lot of kayak. So in my opinion, if they ever want to make a new edition of this Titan X, I would definitely recommend, figuring out a way to get more handle surface area, more area to grab onto to lift and move around, because this is really only designed for one hand. You could probably fit two hands if you squeeze it, but it's not a comfortable experience. So definitely, in my opinion, one major room for improvement is adding more front handle surface area for sure. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on that Titan X bow handle issue that some have had. Okay, so one thing I do want to talk about, and I don't really consider it a full con in that sense, just something more that is worth the conversation, is minor water buildup. So in terms of getting water in where your feet sit, for me, this is a very minor issue. I had maybe had cups worth of water at the most at one time, assuming it's not raining. I've had 1 cup's worth of water. Not bad whatsoever. A million times better than Pete's kayak was. Pete's Titan 12 had a bunch of issues with that. But yeah, we don't have it on this one really at all, which is great. In terms of water getting into the hull, not really a big issue either. I have had, on an 8-hour day, at the most, I'll have 1 cup. And that was before we made some changes. I'll get into it in a second here. But yeah, if you're concerned about what the older Titans used to do with water buildup in the hull, I wouldn't be worried about it with this one. I would say it's like 97% better from what it was previously. You may get like a cup here or there, but that's the most you'll get, is about 1 cup, which is really not bad at all. At the end of the day, any kayak you buy will take on some level of water. It just comes with the nature of a kayak. But, you know, it's very good with this one, so I wouldn't be too worried. The next one is kind of a big one for me, but not a big one for a lot of people. So we're actually going to go near the Propel drive right now. All right, so this Propel drive, the unit itself has been fantastic. I've had no issue. I will say, though, one issue, and I've been waiting to talk about this with you guys. Those of you who are on that Titan X group will probably already know, but there used to be some pretty severe scratches, and it's hard to tell right here, but I'll actually take this out. So those of you who are on the Titan X Facebook group will probably already know that I've been talking about this a little bit, but I wanted to wait for this 1-year buyer's review to talk about it on the channel here. But I actually had some pretty severe scuffing on the wall of this kayak here where the Propel drive sits. And I say had and was in past tense because I am actually on my second hull. Those of you who are on that group already knew that, but I am on my second hull. And it very well could have been there a long time ago and I didn't notice it until recently. But there was actually a small little dent in the wall where this Propel drive sits. And it almost looks like, and nobody actually did this, but it looks like what would happen if you took a Phillips head screwdriver and banged it with a hammer. It kind of looks like that. Obviously nobody did that, but it looked like that, followed by a lot of severe scratches here. So it didn't create a problem for a little while, but I feel like as those scratches kind of grew and grew and grew, that little spot that was probably there from the very beginning continued to get worse and worse until it finally put a little pinhole leak in the hull. It probably won't happen to you. I still can't fully figure out how it happened because I don't think it was caused by the scratches. It didn't look like that. So I don't think it was caused by the Propel drive moving all the time. It might have been there from the very beginning and we just didn't notice it. But I did have that issue. So I actually have experience with Native's warranty. They were really good. Native's warranty was really good about it. I've never seen this issue on any Native Watercraft kayaks, including the Titan X. I've never seen it happen to anybody else, but it did happen to me. So I ended up getting a whole new hull under warranty. And personally, it was a very pain-free experience getting that hull. From start to finish, it was about 2 weeks, as in from the first email explaining what happened to having the kayak at my house, it was about 2 weeks. And it was only about $16 out of pocket for all of it. And the only reason it was $16 was because I had to transfer the registration from my old one to the new one. That's the only reason I had to pay $16. But yeah, so seemingly free out the door. It took about 2 weeks. Not bad at all. So yeah, so this was definitely an issue. If you're concerned about that, one thing that you can do to prevent scratches on the wall here is to actually put the soft side of Velcro. You can actually just stick it on there. It'll actually completely stop that. So if you want to do that, more power to you, go ahead. But yeah, so that's my cons. Again, I try my best to stay constructive with these. I hope that they kind of help you a little bit. Yeah, we're going to get to the next part of this video now. All right, so now that we've kind of gone through our modifications, gone through our pros and cons, I wanted to talk about a few different things that are surrounding this Titan X, some topics that I feel are worth bringing up. And one major one has to be the true use of the pedal drive. In saying that, I basically mean, does this pedal drive really have a use for many people? On this kayak, this is a very expensive kayak. This is just under a $4,000 kayak. It's definitely not a cheap kayak. And it comes with the pedal drive, but it is also extremely motor ready, meaning you have mounts ready to go for a bow mounted motor or rear mounted motor, but you have the Propel drive as well. And this is just something I've noticed. If you do it this way, more power to you. I don't want to make it seem like I'm talking down on people that do this. If you want to do it, it's more than fine. But I feel like I have seen a lot of people, and this is just my observations, I have seen a lot of people who buy this kayak with the Propel drive, with everything, and the first thing that they do is they take the pedal drive and they put it in the attic and they never touch it again. I just feel like in terms of value for money, that's just not the best way to go about things. You know, I've even seen people go so far as to actually physically seal this drive area, this opening for the Propel drive. I've seen people go so far as to seal it shut to the point where it's actually like sealed, like you can't open it up again. When I see that, I just don't think that's great value for money, because this is an $800, I believe, $800 Propel drive unit here. And you're essentially taking $800 to $1,000 and just putting it in your attic and never touching it again. When you can spend that $800 to $1,000 and get something for the boat. Get a kayak that does not come with a pedal drive. For example, you know, the Bonafide PWR or the new Bonafide XTR. You know, there's a lot of, you know, motor ready kayaks that don't have propel drives. I would honestly get one of those because you're going to spend less money and you're not going to have to take an $800 to $1,000 unit and never touch it. So in my opinion, that's just kind of something I'm starting to notice more with this Titan X is, does the pedal drive really have a use for a lot of people? I know there's a lot of people that only use the pedal drive. In that case, that's, you know, great. But, you know, I do see a lot of people that never touch this, that put it in their attic and never touch it again. So if you're considering this Titan X, I would really have really sit down, even take a notebook or a pen and really write out what you want to do with this kayak. You know, if you look at this kayak and you say, man, this is a really nice kayak, but I don't think I would really use this. I think I would just use the motor. Then this probably isn't the kayak for you. In my honest opinion, it's probably not. Obviously, you still can get it, but in my opinion, it's just, if your intent is to not use the pedal drive, I don't recommend buying this boat. I recommend going with something like a Bonafide XTR or a Bonafide PWR, Wilderness Systems Tactical Pro that's coming out, or even an Old Town Autopilot. You know, something like that. That's more catered to what you want to do. So that's my opinion. You know, I do think that's happening a lot more in the kayak world, where these guys are never being used on Titan X's, and you know, it's not the best value for money move in my opinion. To get into another topic here quickly, just kind of piggyback on what I said earlier with the kayak industry. You know, kayaks are at a time period where there is so much variety. You can easily get a kayak that's like $6,000, like that EPDL that came out. You can easily go for something as crazy as that, or you can go as minimalist as you want. You know, you don't have to go this crazy to enjoy kayak fishing, or you can go even crazier than me to enjoy kayak fishing. As long as you're having fun, that's all that matters. You know, I just think that's definitely a growing, you know, conversation topic for a lot of, you know, the kayak industry as a whole. You know, the glory of kayak fishing is there are options for everybody. There are budget options that you can get at a retail store for a few $100. There are cheaper options in the fishing kayak world that are budget friendly but good quality. There are higher end ones like this, you know, and everybody, it all depends on what you feel is fun and what you enjoy. As long as you're not, you know, looking down on other people for doing what they find is fun. But yeah, I just feel like that's kind of a growing issue in the kayak world right now. Is that, and honestly, you know, it's your life, it's your money, do what you feel is right at the end of the day. But yeah, so those are two topics that I kind of wanted to talk about in the kayak industry. So yeah, guys, that kind of brings us to the end of the video. Now we're going to talk about my final overall thoughts. You know, at the end of the day, do I recommend this kayak? Yes, I do. However, you know, there is something to be said about these kayaks. These type of kayaks are a hyper-specific category of people. These type of kayaks are not for everybody. You know, spending $4,000 on a kayak with a ton of different accessories is not for everybody, and that's more than okay. However, I will say, if you are an avid kayak angler looking to really step up his setups, if you are a tournament angler, tournament kayak angler, these kayaks are a great choice. This Titan X is a fantastic choice. It's a great choice for those hyper-specific categories. I will say though, you know, if you're a casual kayak angler, goes every once in a while, goes like once a month, you know, every couple of weekends with his friends, you know, this kayak isn't really necessary for you. And obviously, you know, if you want to buy it, you want to buy it, that's more power to you. But I will say that there is something to be said about these being a hyper-specific category. But in that hyper-specific category, these kayaks are fantastic. This Titan X 12.5 is a great kayak for the advanced level kayak angler. It is one of the best choices. Right up there with the Hobie Pro anglers, right up there with the Old Town Autopilots, right up there with whatever kayak you can name. It's up there. You know, in my opinion, it's one of the best kayaks on the market right now. Definitely some other things to keep in mind if you are really considering this kayak. You know, the weight is definitely something to think about. The weight is definitely a concern here. If you're planning on getting a trailer, if you're planning on car topping it, if you're planning on, you know, truck bedding it, you know, it's all up to you, but definitely think about that. You know, definitely think about your transportation of what you can handle and what your gear can handle, your car, your trailer, whatever. Those are things to think about as well. But do I recommend it? Yes, I do. Do I recommend it for the advanced kayak angler? I absolutely do. And I fully plan on having this kayak for the 2025 fishing season. So I'll quickly go over some of the future plans. So obviously I fully plan on keeping this for the next fishing season in 2025. Without a doubt, this will be the main vessel we use. I obviously plan to keep this thing for the long haul. In terms of modifications, in a dream world, I would love to put live scope and a power pole back there. Those would be my two like dream ones to do. 50-50 on if we do those this season. It might be like next winter that we do those, but those are in the plans, you know, among some smaller things. But yeah, guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this helped you guys if you guys are considering buying a Titan X and thinking about it long term. These are fantastic quality kayaks, and if you're in the market for a high-end kayak, this is definitely one you should consider. But yeah, if you're considering getting a Titan X or you've had a Titan X and are just curious on my thoughts, thank you so much for watching either way. I really appreciate it. Like I said earlier, these one-year buyer's reviews on these kayaks are kind of like our Super Bowl for the channel. So if you enjoyed, definitely be sure to like, comment, subscribe. My voice is absolutely gone right now. I'm exhausted from talking for an hour straight. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any more questions, leave them down below. I'll happily answer them. Stay tuned for all the upcoming videos coming very soon, not just on this Titan X, but on a ton of different topics. So thank you guys for watching. See you later.